Did you know that a major financial crisis hits the global economy roughly every 10 years? Think about that for a second. Over a typical working life, you could experience 4 or 5 of these upheavals. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? After everything we've been through, after all the lessons we were supposed to learn, is your money, your hard-earned savings, actually safe? Today, we're going on a journey through 200 years of financial history. We'll look at 4 epic crashes that shook the world to its core, and by the end, we'll uncover the one crucial lesson that connects them all. A lesson that could be the key to protecting your own financial future. Let's be honest, the idea of financial security often feels like a moving target. One minute, the markets are soaring and everyone feels like a genius. The next, it's all doom and gloom, and people are watching their life savings evaporate. This isn't a new phenomenon. This cycle of boom and bust, of confidence and panic, has been repeating for centuries. It's a recurring nightmare that has wiped out fortunes, bankrupted families and reshaped societies. The urgency to understand this pattern has never been greater, because history has a nasty habit of repeating itself, especially when we forget its lessons. So why does this keep happening? And more importantly, what can you do about it? Let's dive in. Our story begins in 1825, with a crisis you might not have even heard of, but it set the stage for everything to come. After the Napoleonic Wars ended, British investors were flush with cash and optimism. They started pouring money into speculative ventures, particularly in Latin America, which was newly independent and seen as the next big thing. Mines, infrastructure, you name it. If it was in Latin America, people were investing. Sound familiar? It was a classic speculative bubble. The Bank of England, trying to control inflation, raised interest rates. Suddenly, credit tightened, investors panicked, and the bubble burst. Banks failed, businesses went under, and people who had put their trust and their savings into these sure things were left with nothing. The first big lesson? When everyone is rushing into the same investment shouting, "You can't lose," it's often the first sign that you can and you will. The trust in the financial system was shattered, and it would take years to rebuild. Fast forward about a century to the one everyone knows, the Great Crash of 1929. The Roaring Twenties was a decade of unprecedented prosperity and cultural change. The stock market seemed like a one-way ticket to wealth. People were buying stocks on margin, meaning they were borrowing money to invest. You could put down just 10% of a stock's price and borrow the other 90%. As long as the market went up, everyone was making a fortune. But what happens when it goes down? On October 29, 1929, a day now known as Black Tuesday, the market collapsed. The margin calls came in, forcing people to sell their stocks at any price to cover their loans, which caused prices to plummet even further. It was a death spiral. This wasn't just a stock market crash. It triggered the Great Depression, the worst economic downturn in modern history. Banks, which had also been speculating with depositors' money, failed by the thousands. People lined up for blocks, trying to get their savings out, only to find the doors shut forever. The trust that was broken in 1825 was utterly demolished. The impact on ordinary people was devastating, leaving a deep scar on a generation and teaching a brutal lesson about the dangers of leverage and putting all your eggs in one very speculative basket. Let's jump to a more recent memory for many, the dot-com bubble of the late 1990s. The internet was new, exciting, and promised to change the world. And it did. But in the early days, investor enthusiasm completely detached from reality. Companies with no profits, no solid business plan, and sometimes not even a real product, were getting billion-dollar valuations just because they had .com in their name. Everyone from seasoned investors to your neighbor was day trading, convinced they had found the secret to easy money. It was a frenzy. I remember seeing companies like Pets.com, which famously spent millions on Super Bowl ads, skyrocket in value before spectacularly flaming out. The crash began in March 2000. The Nasdaq index, which was full of these tech stocks, lost nearly 80% of its value over the next 2 years. Trillions of dollars in market value simply vanished. While the banking system itself didn't collapse like in 1929, the effect on individual investors was profound. Retirement accounts were decimated. People who had quit their jobs to become full-time traders were wiped out. The crash reminded us that hype is not a business model and that a cool idea doesn't automatically equal a sound investment. Trust in the new economy was shaken and a healthy dose of skepticism returned. And that brings us to the big one, the 2008 global financial crisis. This crisis was different. It wasn't just about stocks or speculative foreign bonds. This time, the weapon of mass financial destruction was hidden in plain sight, the housing market. For years, banks had been giving out subprime mortgages to people who couldn't really afford them, under the assumption that house prices would only go up. They then packaged these risky loans into complex financial products called mortgage-backed securities and sold them to investors all over the world, often with misleadingly safe credit ratings. When the housing bubble inevitably burst and homeowners started defaulting, the value of these securities plummeted. This created a chain reaction. Major financial institutions like Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. The global credit system froze. Banks stopped lending to each other, to businesses and to individuals. It felt like the entire world economy was on the brink of collapse. People watched in horror as their 401ks tanked and the value of their homes, their single biggest asset, cratered. The trust in the very foundations of the financial system, the banks, the rating agencies, the regulators, was fundamentally broken. It was a painful global lesson in how interconnected and fragile our system really is. So, 1825, 1929, 2000, 2008. 4 massive crashes separated by decades, technology, and geography. Yet they all tell the same story. A story of speculative fever, of herd mentality, of believing this time is different. A story of leverage and complex financial products that few understood. And in every single case, it was the ordinary person, the one who trusted the system, who paid the highest price. So what is the one lesson that cuts through all of this history? It's surprisingly simple, yet profoundly important. The single most crucial lesson from 200 years of financial crashes is this: you cannot put blind faith in any single institution or any single asset class. Your money is only as safe as the system you put it in, and as we've seen, that system is prone to failure. The lesson is not to hide your money under the mattress. The lesson is not to be terrified of investing. The real lesson is the paramount importance of diversification and financial education. Don't put all your money in stocks. Don't put it all in real estate. Don't leave it all sitting in one bank account. Spread it out. Understand what you're investing in. Ask questions. Be skeptical when something sounds too good to be true, because it almost always is. History teaches us that the financial world will always have its manias, panics, and crashes. They are a feature, not a bug, of the system. So, how does this apply to you today? In our modern world, the financial landscape is more complex than ever. Thank you so much for joining me on this historical journey. I hope it's given you a new perspective on financial safety. What are your biggest fears when it comes to your money? Have you lived through any of these crashes? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. I'd love to read them. And if you found this helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content. In our next video, we're going to take these lessons and turn them into action, exploring smart, practical investment strategies for today's world. You won't want to miss it. See you next time.